Welcome to Offsite Dirt, the podcast committed to news and insight in the offsite construction industry. Join our team of experts covering modern methods of construction, high-performance build, lean manufacturing, prefab, and beyond. Here's the dirt on Offsite Dirt. We would like to thank our partner, Wesco, for being our official Offsite Dirt sponsor.
We provide innovative supply chain solutions every hour, every day, all around the globe. Our people roll up their sleeves and help create a world you can depend on. Focusing on the details, the challenges, and the unexpected, so that you can live life uninterrupted. Wesco. Ingenuity delivered.
Hello and welcome to another episode. My name is Audrey Grabesic. I am here with Jason Van Ness. He is an architect and founder of Logic Building Systems. It's so wonderful when you walk into a place and realize that you feel like you're at home. I almost feel that way with Jason. I got to meet him earlier today and instantly I knew that we needed to get him on Offsite Dirt. Jason, how are you today?
It's great to spend some time with you. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing so well. He's the associate professor of architecture and he's the executive director at the Center of Offsite Construction. Yes, there is a Center for Offsite Construction. To give us a little bit of your background, Jason, before we start walking into this really cool conversation that we're going to have.
Sweet, sure. I was incredibly lucky in grad school to get in with some early software and meet some really fantastic people in New York and help architecture firms flip from CAD to BIM way back in the day, right, in the aughts. And I kept going from architecture firm to architecture firm while I was on the tenure track at New York Tech, watching our colleagues all really sharpen their pencils to get affordable housing to pencil out in really contested marketplaces like New York City. And they were repeating, the same bathroom layouts, the same kitchen layouts, really trying to tweak that product. And even back then, I was scratching my chin and saying, like, well, if you can copy and paste these elements inside your software, shouldn't there be an analogous way to do the same thing for multifamily housing? And so, gradually that work led to a lot of consulting in the modular industry with some friends that are working in Western Pennsylvania and folks who are working in Brooklyn and New York. I'm constrained by some non-competes to not really work in the hospitality space for a couple more months because they're doing such great work and we don't need to compete. So I pivoted with Logic to go into the multifamily housing space where I think critical needs for industrialized construction are becoming acute.
So I'm talking to Jason and I swear we know almost all the same people in the industry. So right there, it's like my ears perk up. And then I look at Logic Building Systems and they create kitchen, bathroom, and utility rooms, almost like pods. Yeah. I mean, is that a fair statement? Do you think that's about right?
Yeah, the pod industry in the US kind of has its own kind of language, but I think most of your listeners would recognize them as pods.
Yeah, right. So then we start talking and I'm instantly intrigued when he starts showing me something. And so Jason, give us a little bit of the background on that something.
Sure. So when we started Logic and we really looked at how to find untapped manufacturing efficiencies that haven't quite been brought to the modular kitchen, bathroom, utility marketplace in like full-throated scale, we began to see that a lot of the issues are not in the manufacturing and the creation of high-quality products. A lot of the issues are those customers that are trying to adopt offsite. Like they've said, we want to save time, we want to save money, we love the regulatory ease of regulatory compliance. How do we work together? How do we collaborate? And this churn from offsite customers when it just comes to figuring out what product to make and how to customize it to their projects. So we took a pause with Logic Building Systems. And the pause we took was really go back to square one and say, how can we streamline collaboration with all these smart people in the industry? Like we got a lot of smart people in the offsite construction industry, a lot smarter than me. And what we see them doing is sort of reinventing the same wheel over and over again. That's when we chartered the first project. We now have 2 at the Center for Offsite Construction. And what we did is we looked over at analogous industries. Specifically, we learned a lot from how the USB standard radically changed the way that we plug in computer peripherals into that, host computer. And what I hope a lot of your listeners remember, like in the 90s, they go to Dell, they go to Gateway, and they'd order that $2,000 tower computer and like put it on the desktop, and they turn it around, and there's all these different shaped plugs back there, right? There's the circles and the squares, the rectangles and everything. And they're all doing the same fundamental thing. They're trading power and data. And the way that marketplace exploded is some of our colleagues at, say, Intel and Microsoft got together and said, let's make an open source standard called the USB standard. And let's just standardize the way that we plug these things together so everybody can concentrate on product differentiation, making better products, and not concentrate on how to connect all the stuff together. And that was a big realization, I'd say, in our pathway, both at Logic, but more importantly at the Center for Offsite Construction, was there's the template, right? We're all making pods and mods, and we're all plugging them into host buildings. Like, how do we tap that magic?
I love it. And I love that you're making this analogy because it makes it so much more clearly defined as to when we move into how do we create something like that, Jason?
So the Center for Offsite Construction is under the 501c3 umbrella at New York Tech. It's chasing open source standards so everyone can license whatever technology we write and release. And really that's the KPI. That's the major sort of metric of any standard, is how fast is it adopted and how widely is it adopted. So it's got to be open source. It's got to have contributions from all the engineers we can pull into the room. And then ultimately, it's got to find a pathway to market. So one of the reasons we are incredibly excited at Logic about this collaboration where we can support the Center for Offsite Construction is we're raising our hand and we're saying, wow, when version 1.0 of this coupling standard is published, we are more than happy to go take this to the underwriter's laboratory process or other ways to get regulatory compliance to make a coupling based on that standard. Now, of course, all that coupling does is position utilities where you can predictably expect them, like at 7'6" for this and down at 3 foot for this and whatever. But that's going to create, something that we hope will share with the entire industry. It's a really complicated word, but it's a simple idea. It's interoperability, which all of our MBA colleagues have taught us what it means. And that idea is simple. Once you have a coupling and you know where all the utilities are going to enter a dwelling unit, then you can switch out pod or mod manufacturers that are all designing and building and delivering products to that standard. So what we hope to bring real estate developers, architects, engineers, and even general contractors is the ability to choose, a pod manufacturer based on things like the quality of the pod or the cost or the price point or whatever. And we're trying to lead that on our own website. At Logic's website, you can see an MSRP for a kitchen. And I really am excited to bring, a kitchen with a known cost and only a variable delivery cost to market. That doesn't exist without this coupling and without this standard.
I love this conversation. And I also am very excited to see you succeed.
Oh,
And
thank you.
we have talked about standardization. We talk about it all the time in offsite and prefab, and that's why it is so effective.
Yeah.
And for you and your team to be able to create this idea of this effective coupling where it's a standard. We talked about it. There is a group of individual panelizers that have got together, and they are too trying to figure out standardization solutions with a panelized system that basically all of us can work from.
Perfect.
These are so important, right? And the great thing is you are creating, the concept has been there in other forms of industry, but not in our industry, right?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I just want to sort of put a vision out there, and that is like, Professor Van Nest over at New York Tech, succeeding or not succeeding is not a really good KPI for this project. What it is like how many of our colleagues can actually find their work easier? How many mod and pod US construction and manufacturing mod and pod plays out there that, the number is somewhere between 100 and 200 that are struggling as suddenly making money. Like the truth is we're in such a deep affordable housing crisis that we could build housing faster than we ever did in American history and still for 20 years keep it up and not get out of this ditch. There is plenty of opportunity for all of us to stop competing with each other and start collaborating, and everybody can succeed. Like this is a big boon for everybody.
Amen. And that's one of the things, that's one of our main principles on Offsite Dirt is about collaboration and community. Because if we don't start working this way, we're never going to succeed. So I love that you are having this dialogue, that you're creating it, that there is a way to actually move it into, the next level of us being able to utilize this. So where are you in the process right now? Do you have the coupling created? Where are you in that?
Great. Well, in truth, I'm a very impatient human being. So there's not one process, there's three, right? The Center for Offsite Construction ultimately is still seeking its initial charter funding, and we're actually looking for advisor firms, be they real estate development firms, MEP firms, or other modular providers, come join the Center for Offsite Construction and really join the steering committee for the standard. If they join and they enter a partnership with us and help fund, like buying some beer, so we get some engineers around the table sharpening their pencils, right?
That's all we need. Just a couple of beers and pizza, we can figure out.
Right. And of course, the code, right, and the UL listing, whatever. But so like that stage one, there is just fleshing out we have a pretty robust collection of colleagues that have raised their hand to become research fellows. And we're in talks with about 3 different real estate firms to become advisory members. And that's really, really nice because they're going to know when it's baked. If you remember USB 1, USB 2, and USB 3, like everyone was mad about having to flip over the USB. And like, so if we can version this quickly with more and more input, we're only going to make this better, right? And that's through collaboration through that nonprofit. The second thing is we've already started gathering our research fellows in order to draft the standard. But at Logic, we don't want to wait. So after getting previews of where these standards are, all of this is online, everyone can see it. We've already prototyped 2 versions of the coupling based on the standard so that we put them up against our prototype bathrooms and kitchens. And we make sure the clearances are right around the hookups. It's just a standard PEX hookup, right? 3/4 inch coupling. But you need to get that tool, the PEX crimp, up and around. And then, okay, what if you're approaching from below? What if you're approaching from the side? How much clearance do you need for the tradesman's elbow to hold the tool to grasp the clamp to make the crimp, right? These kind of things you're not going to find with beer around a table. They're the kind of things you're going to prototype and you're going to rehearse. So there's 3 things we're doing at Logic. We're prototyping at the Center for Offsite Construction. We're still gathering initial funding and our advisory board.
That is beautiful. And we are definitely going to be putting that in the show notes because we need more advisory members and we need to make this Center for Offsite Construction a success. It's all about creating solution and it's all about standardization. And the only way we can get there is by working together.
Absolutely. And I hope it's a win-win for our collaborators at every level. Our goal at Center for Offsite Construction is to ultimately partner with HUD and their research roadmap to get the standard recognized federally as fast as humanly possible so we can all start working to it. But if you look at the history of like the USB connection, all those engineers that were working on the USB connection ended up being the VP of design for their next corporation they went to work for, right? Like come to the table, know the standard better than anyone else, and then become industry leaders for how the standard is deployed in the industry. Be thought leaders in how this can work better. Join us in essentially changing the tide.
I absolutely. And you're making so many valid points in solution. We're
Let's
trying
do it.
solutions,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You mentioned the offsite construction roadmap. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
This was a joint publication. Like I'm its biggest fan. I speak not from a point of authorship, but the Offsite Construction for Housing Research Roadmap was published by HUD in cooperation with ModX in 2023. And this is like right down the middle, exactly what governments should be doing, right? I don't care what side of the aisle you are. HUD just said, let's make a roadmap for all the problems that we need to research our way through to make offsite construction work. And, standard, I think, or topic 3.2 is we need more standards for how to connect this stuff together. I could not have raised my hand high enough. I just kicked myself that I found it after the call for applications went through in August of last year. If you flip through it, you're going to see a ton of quotes. It's a really big, thick. You expect a roadmap, yeah, 3 pages. No, it's like a 67-page documentation. It's an academic element. It's got nothing but, a bibliography at the back. It goes pages and pages. But you see some of our smartest colleagues quoted, right? So that section that I just mentioned, 3.2 for standards, the quote at the top of that section is by Rebecca Lorenz, who's done a huge amount of work at Assembly OSM. And before that, I met her at SHOP. And she's just saying the obvious, right? But it's so inspiring. Right, to say we got to find a way to standardize to work together so we spend less time competing and more time cooperating.
Yeah, and this competition thing, if you really think about it, let's just say it's 5 million homes that we need today. And let's just say we're not 6% of the marketplace in offsite solution, but let's even say we're 80%, right? Sure. Even if 80%, that is thousands and thousands and thousands of factories. And that's thousands and thousands and thousands of homes. And when we are not building to a certain conformity or a certain standardization, we basically, like you were saying, we create more inefficiencies, we create less productivity. And so being able to have these conversations like you are, Jason, and actually taking action and then creating the Center for Offsite Construction and being an activist in it is truly remarkable. And I can't commend you enough.
Thank you. Yeah. If you unpack what you said there's 2 other problems. I'd love to unpack real quick. Is that all right?
Go for it. We've got time.
So what's so cool about that, right, is that we're ultimately trying to productize in the offsite construction industry how to essentially deliver a product. Like if we're going to design the same pod over and over again, then every time we kind of have to re-evaluate it and make sure this is conform with municipal standards and all that stuff. And I think like a big exciting thing about having a product catalog and saying, this is this kitchen you can just put in, is not only are we not reinventing how to build it, but we're also not reinventing how to warranty it, to guarantee it, and how to fund it. So it's not that like this is a manufacturing problem. This is a big problem where a lot of smart people go and re-review and re-review and re-review in order to line up the governmental approvals and the lending approvals. And that's the other major project that the Center for Offsite Construction wants to tackle through a series of papers in this upcoming academic year, which is that the production that we're exploring in modular is going faster than the lending products that are designed to support them. And let's just pretend for a minute Logic or any Logic competitor came up with the world's best kitchen and this coupling race to market. There would be a very big lending problem the first time a customer wanted to deploy this on 60 dwelling units in an apartment, in rural New England or something. And that is, that no lender really is geared up to assess things like logic and things like this coupling. And ultimately to figure out what level of risk they're willing to take on a new kind of product delivery method. We have a lot of colleagues that are doing really good work in this area, right? I had a conversation with US Modular Capital recently, and they were very easily able to describe the kind of work they want to be doing with general contractors, modular providers, and whatnot. But it got really sort of tenuous very quickly when they said, well, gosh, if we've never met this designer before, if we've never met this product before, we really need some other assurances to make sure that everybody's going to succeed in this. I think that lending problem may be the next big hurdle that we need to tackle. And we're very excited to work with folks that could be intermediary lenders and show how little risk there is when you buy products and you install them into buildings. Once we get over that hurdle, all of us are going to be building our way out of this housing crisis in no time. Just standards and lending. That's it.
It's funny that you bring that up. So when I was building homes, modular homes in Colorado, there was a specific bank. Actually, there's two specific banks that actually were known for like 20 years of lending for modular. Do you know how busy those banks were? It was incredible.
Right.
It was incredible
And
because they understood it, right? And then they worked with, I don't know, 10 different retailers in the state. They knew the process. They loved lending because they had this process. They knew exactly how it worked. And they also knew how the factory was able to complete the project. So it was very secure for them. But it's interesting because now I'm in Savannah, Georgia, and it's almost impossible for me to find that same kind of banking system. And the ones that were in Colorado where they were smaller banks. They wanted to work with homeowners. They wanted to create the solution, and they took the time to understand it.
Isn't that pretty? That's just beautiful, right? Like it's just community members coming together and understanding each other that really is going to make the change. And really it was a surprise to me going down this road that like some coupling, write a standard, make a coupling, and then productize kitchens and bathrooms actually is going to make this reciprocal relationship, this new lending product where people can, just go into business with each other and support each other's bottom line. That's what we all need together. And boy, what a dream it would be if more and more of those kind of relationships that you found in Savannah begin percolating, up all through the landscape to address this community problem.
I feel like we're getting closer. I feel like a lot of the conversations that I'm having on the lending thing is these insurance companies that are creating these funds. So I feel like they're starting to see progress in there, but you're right. We just got to keep climbing the mountain, right? It's funny, when I started in modular construction to where I am even today, I feel like it's 100% different. And that's in a very small amount of time. So we are moving quickly, we are moving fast, but I think it's really about, and I love ModX. I met Ryan and those guys, I want to say met them maybe 5 years ago. I'm just completely impressed with their dedication and the education that they put out there and how they're profoundly going around the globe and meeting with companies and doing these amazing papers and these amazing studies. So a shout out to them for sure.
For sure. Yeah, it's important work. It's kind of the bleeding edge. I imagine they have a lot of nights where they're just looking deeper into their, beer. Like, what are we doing out here? But what they're doing is they're inspiring the rest of us to go find this pathway, collaborate, and make it happen.
And Jason, I have to say, you have inspired me. And today, I feel very proud to be in a community with you because we need more people like you that are creating solutions, that are taking action and helping us standardize these systems. So thank you very much for being here on Offsite Dirt.
What a pleasure. I hope to see you at the Center for Offsite Construction, one day soon, where we can show you the first, published standard. And if you're ever in New England, swing by Logic Building Systems in downtown Brattleboro, because we're going to lead this change from our little Main Street laboratory. It's happening. I
love it. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And it's great to see the progress. Well,
Thanks.
now you've got a little bit more understanding. We definitely are going to put some amazing connections in the show notes. Check out the Center for Offsite Construction and make sure to look at Logic Building Systems. Jason is doing something that's changing our industry, and we are here to support and collaborate. Thank you again for being here. And that's all the dirt on Offsite Dirt.